The late afternoon sun cast long shadows through the dusty windows of Webb's fine jewelry, a modest shop tucked between a bail bonds office and a pawn shop on Spring Street in downtown Los Angeles. The store was a relic of another era, its glass cases filled with pieces that told stories spanning generations. Solomon Webb, 67, hunched over his workbench, his weathered hands steadied by decades of precision. A jeweler's loop firmly affixed to his right eye magnified the delicate mechanism of an antique pocket watch. The small bell above the door jingled, announcing a customer. Solomon glanced up, his practiced eye quickly assessing the man who entered. Tall, slightly disheveled, with the haunted look of someone carrying too much for too long. The stranger's clothes were clean but worn, his shoes scuffed but polished. A man holding on to dignity by his fingernails. "Be with you in a moment," Solomon called, returning his attention to securing the final gear in the watch. Marcus Trevor shifted his weight from one foot to another, scanning the shop with nervous energy. His fingers tapped an anxious rhythm against the small velvet pouch in his pocket. The walls of the jewelry store felt like they were closing in on him, a physical manifestation of the financial pressure that had been suffocating him for months. "What can I help you with today?" Solomon asked, setting aside his tools and removing the loop from his eye. Marcus approached the counter, his throat suddenly dry. "I need to sell something," he said, pulling out the small velvet pouch. His fingers hesitated momentarily before loosening the drawstring. "It's my ex-wife's wedding ring." "Ex-wife, huh?" Solomon nodded with understanding, his eyes kind behind wire-rimmed glasses. "May I?" he asked, extending his palm. Marcus upended the pouch, and a platinum band tumbled onto Solomon's outstretched hand. The ring caught the light, its diamonds sparkling despite the layer of dust on the shop windows. "This is quality work," Solomon commented, turning the ring between his fingers. "Mind if I take a closer look?" Marcus nodded, his jaw tightening. "It's been sitting in a drawer for 3 years, since she left." Solomon returned to his workbench, slipping his loop back into place. 3 years is a long time," he remarked, positioning the ring under his specialized light. "Yeah, well, never thought I'd be selling it," Marcus replied, his voice tight with suppressed emotion. "But my daughter, Emma, she needs surgery. Insurance only covers part of it." Solomon nodded absently, his attention now fully captured by the ring. He rotated it slowly, examining the craftsmanship, the setting, His hand froze. The blood drained from his face. "Is something wrong?" Marcus asked, noticing the sudden change in the jeweler's demeanor. Solomon removed the loop with trembling fingers. "The inscription," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Inside the band." Marcus shrugged. "Yeah, my ex had it engraved when we got married, some romantic gesture." "What was your wife's name?" Solomon asked, his voice now strangely formal. Vanessa Trevor." Marcus frowned, confused by the question. "Why?" Solomon didn't answer immediately. He turned the ring again, reading the inscription aloud. "A.L. and J.D. forever. 03, 12, 05. He looked up at Marcus, his eyes now cold and calculating. "These aren't your initials. These aren't Vanessa's initials." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe it was engraved when she bought it? I don't know. She always said it was a family heirloom." Solomon set the ring down carefully as if it might burn him. "Would you excuse me for a moment? I need to make a call." Without waiting for a response, Solomon disappeared through a door behind the counter, leaving Marcus standing alone in the silent shop. The minutes stretched painfully. Through the thin wall, Marcus could hear the urgent murmur of Solomon's voice, though he couldn't make out the words. Outside, the afternoon light had faded, casting the shop into shadows. The glass cases gleamed dully in the dimness, their contents winking like distant stars. When Solomon finally emerged, his face was composed, but his eyes were hard. "Mr. Trevor, I'm afraid there's been a complication. That ring," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "That ring matches the description of evidence in an unsolved disappearance case from 2005. A young woman named Amber Levine." Marcus stared at him in disbelief. "What? That's ridiculous. It's my wife's ring." "The initials A.L. stand for Amber Levine," Solomon continued, his voice steady despite the emotion churning beneath his professional demeanor. "She was my niece. She disappeared in March 2005, shortly after her engagement to James Delaney, J.D. The floor seemed to tilt beneath Marcus's feet. "This has to be a mistake," he said, his voice rising. "Vanessa had this ring for years. She was wearing it when we met in 2012. Solomon's expression didn't change. The police are on their way, Mr. Trevor. I think it would be best if you waited for them to arrive. Police? Marcus repeated incredulously. You called the police? This is insane. I'm just trying to sell a ring to pay for my daughter's medical bills. I understand this is unexpected, Solomon said, his voice softening slightly. But please, try to remain calm. I'm sure there's an explanation. Marcus ran his hands through his hair, panic rising in his chest. I can't be here when the police arrive. I have to pick up my daughter from her after-school program. She's only 8. She'll be alone. Solomon hesitated, compassion warring with suspicion in his expression. Is there someone who can get her? No, there's no one, Marcus said, desperation edging into his voice. It's just me and Emma. Her mother left us. I'm all she has. The mention of a child seemed to touch something in Solomon. What school? Franklin Elementary, Marcus replied. Please, I need to go get her. Solomon made a decision. I'll call the police back. Tell them to meet us at your home instead. But I'm coming with you to get your daughter. Why would you do that? Marcus asked, suspicion replacing his panic. Because I believe you're telling the truth about your daughter, Solomon said. But I also believe that ring belonged to my niece, and I've spent 18 years wondering what happened to her. Marcus's mind raced, searching for an explanation that made sense. Vanessa must have bought it somewhere, maybe a pawn shop or an estate sale. Maybe, Solomon conceded, though his tone suggested he thought otherwise. Let's go get your daughter, and then we can sort this out. The ride to Franklin Elementary was tense, each man lost in his thoughts. Solomon drove, occasionally glancing at Marcus in the passenger seat. For his part, Marcus stared out the window, his mind frantically trying to reconcile what he knew about his ex-wife with this impossible revelation. Vanessa had always been secretive about her past. When they met at a coffee shop in 2012, she'd told him she was new to Los Angeles, trying to make a fresh start after a bad relationship. He'd found her mysterious, alluring. Now those same qualities seemed sinister, loaded with unspoken implications. The school came into view, a sprawling single-story building surrounded by chain-link fence. Children milled about in the front courtyard, supervised by tired-looking teachers waiting for the last parents to arrive. That's Emma, Marcus said, pointing to a small figure sitting alone on a bench, her dark hair falling forward as she bent over a book. She always has her nose in a story. Solomon nodded, something in his expression softening as he watched the little girl turn a page. She looks like a good kid. The best, Marcus agreed, a catch in his voice. She doesn't deserve any of this. They parked, and Emma looked up as they approached. Her face lit up at the sight of her father, then registered curious surprise at the stranger accompanying him. Daddy, she called, slipping off the bench and running to him. Marcus knelt to catch her in a tight embrace. Hey, Emma Bear, he said, trying to keep his voice normal. How was school? Good. Ms. Patterson said my science project was the best in class. She beamed, then looked curiously at Solomon. Who's this? Marcus hesitated. This is Mr. Webb. He's helping me with something. Solomon crouched down, wincing slightly at the strain on his knees to meet Emma at eye level. Hello, Emma. Your dad tells me you like to read. She nodded, suddenly shy. I'm reading about dinosaurs, she said, holding up her book. They're extinct, but scientists find their bones and can tell what they look like. That's exactly right, Solomon said, his smile genuine. Scientists are like detectives for very old mysteries. Emma considered this, then nodded approvingly. Are you a scientist, Mr. Webb? No, I'm a jeweler. I work with rings and necklaces and watches. Like treasure? Emma asked, her eyes widening. Sometimes, Solomon agreed. Every piece of jewelry has a story. As they walked back to the car, Emma chattering about her day, Marcus caught Solomon watching them with a complicated expression. There was suspicion there still, but also doubt, and something else. Compassion, perhaps. The drive to Marcus's apartment was filled with Emma's cheerful monologue about school, dinosaurs, and her upcoming surgery. The doctor says they'll fix the hole in my heart, she explained matter-of-factly to Solomon. And then I can run without getting tired. Maybe I can even play soccer next year. Solomon nodded, his eyes meeting Marcus's in the rearview mirror. That sounds wonderful, Emma. The apartment building was in a neighborhood that had seen better days. Peeling paint, security bars on windows, but clean enough. Marcus's unit was on the 3rd floor, a walk-up with a view of the parking lot. Inside, the apartment was small but meticulously kept. Framed photos of Emma dominated the walls and shelves. Emma as a toddler, Emma at the beach, Emma blowing out birthday candles. Conspicuously absent were any photos of Vanessa. Emma, why don't you go work on your homework while I talk with Mr. Webb? Marcus suggested, setting down her backpack. Once Emma disappeared into her bedroom, Marcus turned to Solomon. Look, I don't know how my ex-wife got that ring, but I had nothing to do with whatever happened to your niece. Solomon sighed heavily, lowering himself onto the worn sofa. When Amber disappeared, it broke our family. Her parents, my brother and his wife, never recovered. My brother died of a heart attack 5 years later. His wife moved back east, changed her name, tried to start over. He paused, his gaze drifting to a photo of Emma. Amber was 23, just graduated college. She had her whole life ahead of her. Marcus sat down across from him, his own troubles momentarily forgotten in the face of the older man's grief. I'm sorry about your niece, truly, but Vanessa... A sharp knock at the door interrupted him. Marcus froze, looking at Solomon with accusation. That will be Detective Rivera, Solomon said quietly. I called her while you were getting Emma from the playground. Marcus stood, his hands clenching into fists. You had no right. Dad? Emma called from her doorway, her voice small and frightened. What's going on? Marcus forced himself to smile reassuringly. Nothing, sweetheart, just a visitor. Go back to your room, okay? The knocking came again, more insistent this time. Mr. Trevor, this is Detective Isabel Rivera, LAPD Cold Case Unit. Please open the door. With no choice left, Marcus walked to the door and opened it. Detective Rivera was a compact woman with sharp eyes and salt and pepper hair pulled back in a severe bun. Behind her stood a tall younger officer, his hand resting casually near his weapon. Marcus Trevor? Detective Rivera asked, though it wasn't really a question. She held up her badge. I'd like to ask you a few questions about a ring you tried to sell today. Marcus stepped back, allowing them to enter. I don't know anything about the ring except that it belonged to my ex-wife. Detective Rivera's gaze swept the apartment, taking in Solomon seated on the sofa, and Emma peering anxiously from her bedroom doorway. Is that your daughter? She asked, her tone softening slightly. Marcus nodded. Emma, she's 8. Officer Chen, would you mind keeping an eye on her while we talk? Detective Rivera suggested. The younger officer nodded, moving toward Emma with a friendly smile. Hi there, he said gently. I'm Officer Chen. Do you want to show me what you're working on? Emma looked to her father for permission. When Marcus nodded, she reluctantly retreated into her room, Officer Chen following. Now, Detective Rivera said, turning her full attention to Marcus, tell me about the ring and your ex-wife. For the next hour, Marcus recounted his relationship with Vanessa. They'd met in 2012 at a coffee shop near the community college where Marcus taught English literature. Vanessa had been guarded about her past, saying only that she'd moved to LA from Northern California after a bad breakup. They dated for 6 months, married quickly, and Emma was born a year later. Things had been good at first, but Vanessa had grown increasingly distant, taking frequent work trips that she was vague about. Then, 3 years ago, Marcus had come home from work to find her gone. Clothes, personal items, even her toothbrush missing. The only note she'd left said she couldn't do this anymore. She abandoned your daughter? Detective Rivera asked, making notes. Marcus nodded, his expression darkening. She hasn't contacted us once since she left. No calls, no letters, not even a birthday card for Emma. It's like she vanished off the face of the earth. And the ring? She left that behind? It was in her jewelry box, Marcus explained. I found it a few days ago when I was looking for things to sell. Emma needs heart surgery and my insurance doesn't cover all the costs. Detective Rivera turned to Solomon. Mr. Webb, you're certain this is the ring described in the Amber Levine case? Solomon nodded gravely. The inscription matches exactly. A.L. and J.D. forever. Arrow 3, 12, Farthio. That was the date James proposed to her. The ring was custom made by a jeweler in San Francisco, a colleague of mine. After Amber disappeared, the ring was listed in the evidence report, but it was never found. Detective Rivera turned back to Marcus. Do you have any photos of your ex-wife? Marcus hesitated. I got rid of most of them after she left. It was too painful, but I think there's one. He walked to a drawer in the kitchen and rummaged through it, eventually pulling out a small photo album. He flipped through it, then handed it to the detective. This was at Emma's 2nd birthday. Detective Rivera studied the photograph, then showed it to Solomon. Is this Amber? Solomon took the photo, his hands trembling slightly. He stared at the image of a smiling woman with dark hair holding a toddler Emma. After a long moment, he shook his head. No, this isn't Amber. Amber was blonde with green eyes. A collective exhale filled the room. But, Solomon continued, his finger tapping the photo, I've seen this woman before. In the case files. She was James Delaney's co-worker at the time Amber disappeared. The police interviewed her. He looked up at Detective Rivera. Her name wasn't Vanessa, though. It was Valerie Nichols. Detective Rivera finished, recognition dawning in her eyes. I remember now. She was questioned but cleared. She had an alibi for the night Amber went missing. She turned to Marcus, her expression now intensely focused. Your ex-wife's full name was Vanessa what? Trevor. Vanessa Trevor. But before we married, it was Vanessa Nichols. The detective and Solomon exchanged a significant look. We need to find her, Detective Rivera said, already pulling out her phone. Mr. Trevor, I'm going to need you to tell me everything you know about your ex-wife. Where she worked, her friends, family, any places she might go. As Marcus began to answer, a small voice interrupted from the hallway. Is my mom in trouble? All three adults turned to see Emma standing there, her small face a mask of confusion and fear. Officer Chen stood behind her, an apologetic expression on his face. She wanted a glass of water, he explained. Marcus crossed to his daughter and knelt before her. Emma, honey, the police need to ask some questions about Mom. It's grown-up stuff, okay? Emma's lower lip trembled. Is that why she left? Because she did something bad? Marcus pulled her into a hug, his own eyes filling with tears. I don't know, Emma Bear, but we're going to find out. Over his daughter's shoulder, Marcus met Detective Rivera's steady gaze. In her eyes, he saw both compassion and steely determination. Whatever secrets Vanessa, or Valerie, had been keeping, they were about to come to light. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a terrible suspicion began to form, that the woman he had married, the mother of his child, might be connected to something far darker than he could have ever imagined. Detective Rivera sat at her desk. A sea of files and photographs spread before her. It was well past midnight, but the cold case unit operated on its own schedule. 18 years' worth of documents from the Amber Levine disappearance stared back at her. Reports, witness statements, evidence logs, and now, a new lead. She tapped her pen against a photograph of Valerie Nichols, taken during her initial interview in 2005. The resemblance to the woman in Marcus Trevor's photo was unmistakable. Though Vanessa Trevor had darker hair, different makeup, people changed their appearance, but certain features remained constant. The slight asymmetry of her eyes, the distinctive shape of her jawline. Working late again, Rivera? Captain Hernandez appeared in her doorway, coffee in hand. Got a break in the Levine case, she replied, gesturing to the files. Remember that engagement ring that was never found? A guy tried to sell it today. Says it belonged to his ex-wife, who abandoned him and their daughter 3 years ago. Hernandez raised an eyebrow. And his ex-wife looks remarkably like Valerie Nichols, who worked with James Delaney, Amber's fiancé. She pushed the photos across her desk. Same woman, different name. Interesting, Hernandez murmured, studying the images. Nichols had an alibi, though, didn't she? Co-worker vouched for her. Said they were at a conference in San Diego when Amber disappeared. Hotel records confirmed a Valerie Nichols checked in, but no security footage ever placed her physically at the hotel. You think she was involved? Rivera sighed, leaning back in her chair. I think it's one hell of a coincidence that she ended up with the victim's engagement ring, changed her name, and then vanished again when things got too domestic. Have you put out a bolo? For Vanessa Trevor, Valerie Nichols, and any other aliases she might be using. Also reached out to the FBI to see if she's popped up anywhere else. She rubbed her eyes tiredly. But here's where it gets really interesting. Pulled her employment records from back then. Guess where she worked before the company with Delaney? Hernandez waited. A pharmaceutical research lab, specializing in experimental sedatives. A moment of silence hung between them as the implication settled. I'll approve whatever overtime you need, Hernandez said finally. Keep me updated. Across town, Marcus sat on the edge of Emma's bed, watching his daughter sleep. The rhythmic rise and fall of her chest, the slight whistling sound she made when she breathed through her mouth. These were the constants in his life, the anchors that had kept him grounded after Vanessa left. How had he missed it? How had he lived with a woman for years, created a child with her, and never suspected she might be hiding something so dark? His phone vibrated. Detective Rivera. Mr. Trevor. Her voice was clipped, professional. We've located James Delaney. He's flying in tomorrow from Chicago. I'd like you to be there when we speak with him. Why me? Because you knew a side of this woman that he didn't. Between the two of you, we might be able to piece together a more complete picture. Marcus glanced at Emma. I'll need to arrange childcare. Bring her to the station. We have a family room she can use. Officer Chen made quite an impression on her. He'd be happy to keep an eye on her. After hanging up, Marcus returned to his surveillance of Emma's peaceful sleep, wondering what he would tell her when she woke up. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that her mother might be involved in someone's disappearance? That the wedding ring he'd been about to sell could be evidence in a criminal case? The truth, he decided. As much of it as she could handle. Emma deserved that much. Morning brought a flurry of activity. Emma took the news with surprising stoicism. Is that why Mom never sends me birthday cards? She asked over a breakfast of Cheerios. Marcus felt his heart breaking. I don't know, Em. Maybe. If she did something bad, does that mean I'm bad too? No, Marcus said firmly, kneeling beside her chair. You are good and kind and brave. Nothing your mom did or didn't do changes that. Emma considered this, then nodded. Okay. Can I bring my dinosaur book to the police station? Marcus marveled at children's resilience. Absolutely. At the station, they were escorted to a small conference room. Officer Chen appeared moments later, offering to show Emma the family room with its books and games. Remember our deal, Marcus said to Emma as she prepared to follow Chen. You stay with Officer Chen, and tonight we'll have pizza and watch that dinosaur movie you like. Emma's face lit up. With extra cheese? Double cheese, Marcus promised, grateful for the momentary normalcy. After they left, Detective Rivera entered, accompanied by a tall man with salt and pepper hair and haunted eyes. Marcus Trevor, this is James Delaney. The men shook hands, sizing each other up. James had the look of someone who had been living with grief for a long time. It had become a part of him, like a limb or an organ. Thank you for coming, Marcus said, uncertain of proper protocol in such a bizarre situation. James nodded stiffly. Detective Rivera says you were married to Valerie? Vanessa, Marcus corrected automatically. But yes, apparently they're the same person. They sat, the air thick with unspoken questions. I've already briefed Mr. Delaney on what we know so far, Rivera said, opening her folder. Now I'd like each of you to tell me about your relationship with this woman. Mr. Delaney, let's start with you. When did you first meet Valerie Nichols? James cleared his throat. October 2004. She joined our department at BioCorp as a research assistant. She was quiet, kept to herself mostly, but very competent. And your impression of her? James considered. Professional, distant. I never socialized with her outside of work until... He trailed off. Until, Rivera prompted. Until after Amber disappeared. Valerie was supportive. Said she'd been through something similar, losing someone suddenly. She helped me organize search parties, put up flyers. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Did your relationship with her ever become romantic? Rivera asked. James flushed. No, never. I was still searching for Amber. Still hoping. He swallowed hard. Valerie left the company about 6 months after Amber disappeared. Said she got a job offer in Southern California. I never heard from her again. Rivera made notes, then turned to Marcus. And you, Mr. Trevor? When did you meet Vanessa Nichols? 2012, at a coffee shop near the community college where I teach. She said she was new to LA, starting fresh after a bad relationship. Did she mention where she was from? Marcus tried to recall their early conversations. Northern California, she said. Never specified where exactly. I assumed San Francisco or the Bay Area from some comments she made. And the ring? Rivera pushed a photo across the table. The platinum band with its diamonds, now sealed in an evidence bag. She always wore it on her right hand, Marcus said. Said it was a family heirloom. After we got engaged, she put it away. I never thought much about it. He turned to James. I swear I had no idea. James nodded, his expression unreadable. What was she like as a wife? Rivera asked. Marcus considered the question carefully. Attentive at first. Loving, but always. Separate somehow. Like there was a part of herself she kept locked away. He paused. After Emma was born, she became more distant. Started taking business trips. She'd be gone for days, sometimes a week. Did you ever verify these trips? Marcus looked down, embarrassed. No, I trusted her. Rivera pressed on. Did she have friends? Family who visited? No family that I ever met. She said her parents died when she was young. A few work friends, but none that were close. Marcus furrowed his brow. Actually, now that I think about it, in 7 years together, She never maintained any long-term friendships. People would come into our lives for a while, then fade away. What about her career? She worked in pharmaceutical sales. At least that's what she told me. Her company was based out of state, so she traveled a lot. Marcus felt sick as the implications of his own words sank in. I never saw her office, never met her co-workers. God, how could I have been so blind? James leaned forward, his voice gentle but insistent. She was very good at making you see what she wanted you to see. Don't blame yourself. Their eyes met in a moment of shared understanding. Rivera's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back up at the two men. We've got a hit on the bolo. A woman matching Vanessa's description was spotted at Los Angeles International Airport last night, boarding a flight to Vancouver. She's running, Marcus said, a strange mix of dread and relief washing over him. We've notified Canadian authorities, Rivera assured him. But there's more. During our preliminary search of digital records, we found something interesting. Vanessa Trevor maintained a storage unit in Burbank under her maiden name, Nichols. Paid for 5 years in advance, automatic renewal. We're executing a search warrant this afternoon. James stood abruptly. I want to be there. Rivera shook her head. Absolutely not. This is an active investigation, Mr. Delaney. We'll keep you informed, but it's been 18 years. James interrupted, his voice cracking. 18 years of not knowing what happened to the woman I loved, please. Rivera studied him for a long moment, then sighed. You can wait outside with a uniformed officer, but you do not enter the unit, understood? James nodded, relief visible in his tense shoulders. What about me? Marcus asked. Someone needs to stay with Emma, Rivera said gently. Marcus knew she was right, but felt the sting of exclusion nonetheless. Will you call me? As soon as you know something? Of course. After James and Rivera left, Marcus sat alone in the conference room, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. His life had been upended before, when Vanessa left, but this was different. This was discovering that the foundation upon which he'd built his life was a fabrication. Officer Chen appeared in the doorway, Emma at his side. Dad! She exclaimed. Officer Chen showed me how police radios work, and I got to see where they keep the bad guys. Just the booking area, Chen clarified quickly. From a distance, Marcus forced a smile. Sounds exciting, Emma Bear. Can we go home now? I'm hungry, and you promised pizza. Pizza it is, Marcus agreed, standing and taking her hand. Double cheese, right? As they walked toward the exit, Marcus felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to find Solomon Webb standing there, looking tired but determined. Any news? The jeweler asked. They found a storage unit. They're searching it now. Solomon nodded solemnly. I'll drive you home. The offer surprised Marcus. You don't have to do that. I know, Solomon said simply, but I'd like to. During the drive, Emma chattered about her adventures at the police station, apparently unfazed by the day's events. Solomon listened attentively, asking questions about her dinosaur book and favorite school subjects. His kindness toward Emma softened something in Marcus. I'm sorry about your niece, Marcus said quietly when Emma became distracted by a passing fire truck. Solomon gripped the steering wheel tighter. Amber was like a daughter to me. After my brother died, I promised him I'd never stop looking for her. He glanced at Marcus. I never imagined it would lead to your doorstep. Whatever Vanessa did, Marcus said, I had no part in it. I need you to believe that. I do, Solomon replied, and I'm sorry for what you and Emma are going through now. At the apartment, Solomon helped Marcus carry in the pizza they'd picked up. As they ate, Emma regaled them with facts about Tyrannosaurus Rex. For a few minutes, they were just 3 people sharing a meal. The specter of Amber Levine and Vanessa Trevor temporarily pushed to the background. After dinner, while Emma showered, Solomon examined the photos on Marcus's walls. She looks like you, he commented, studying a picture of Emma on a swing. Everyone says that, Marcus agreed, but she has Vanessa's smile. The observation, once a source of pride, now felt tainted. Solomon turned to him, expression grave. Whatever happens with the investigation, Emma will need stability, support. If you need help, financial or otherwise, please don't hesitate to ask. My business does well enough that I can assist with her medical bills. Marcus was stunned by the offer. Why would you do that? Because in helping you and Emma, I feel like I'm honoring Amber in some way, bringing something good out of this tragedy. Before Marcus could respond, his phone rang. Detective Rivera. Mr. Trevor? Her voice sounded strained. We've completed our initial search of the storage unit. And, a heavy pause, we found photographs. Dozens of them. Surveillance photos of Amber Levine in the weeks before her disappearance. And other women. Some with dates and locations written on the back. Other women, Marcus repeated, a sick feeling growing in his stomach. Yes, and personal effects that appear to belong to missing persons from various states. IDs, jewelry, journals. Rivera took a breath. And we found a journal that appears to be Vanessa's, or Valerie's. It contains detailed descriptions, plans, fantasies perhaps. What kind of fantasies? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. Violent ones, Rivera said simply. Mr. Trevor, I need to ask you, did Vanessa ever display any violent tendencies, any unusual fascinations or behaviors? Marcus thought of his ex-wife, her aloofness, her secretive nature, but couldn't reconcile that with the picture Rivera was painting. No, never. She was distant sometimes, but never violent. What about toward Emma? No. The suggestion made his blood run cold. She was a good mother, distracted sometimes, but she never harmed Emma. I'm going to have a child psychologist speak with Emma tomorrow if that's all right with you. Just standard procedure. Marcus felt suddenly defensive. Emma is fine. She doesn't need... Dad? Emma's voice came from the hallway. She stood in her pajamas, wet hair wrapped in a towel. Is Mom in trouble? Marcus and Solomon exchanged looks. I think it's time for our movie, Marcus said, avoiding the question. Go get comfortable on the couch, I'll be right there. After Emma left, Marcus returned to the phone. Detective, I need to go. We can talk more tomorrow. Of course. One more thing. There's a press conference scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. The department wants to release information about the storage unit findings and ask for public assistance in locating Vanessa. I thought you should know. After hanging up, Marcus stood motionless in the kitchen. Solomon approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. What is it? The older man asked. They found evidence, Marcus said numbly. Photos of Amber and other women. Journals with violent fantasies. He looked up at Solomon, his eyes haunted. What if Vanessa is? What if she? Let's not jump to conclusions, Solomon said, though his own face had grown pale. The evidence will speak for itself. In the living room, Emma had set up the movie and was waiting patiently. As Marcus joined her on the couch, she cuddled against him, her small body warm and trusting. Mr. Webb can watch too, she offered magnanimously. Solomon smiled, despite the heaviness in his heart. Thank you, Emma. I'd like that. As the movie began, Marcus held his daughter close, marveling at how something so pure and good could have come from such darkness. Whatever truths tomorrow might bring, he would protect Emma from them as best he could. Across the city, Detective Rivera stood in the evidence room. Photographs of missing women spread before her in a grim mosaic. Among them was a school portrait of Amber Levine, her smile bright and innocent, unaware of what awaited her. Rivera picked up Vanessa's journal, its pages filled with meticulous handwriting, detailed observations, plans, fantasies of domination and control, names, dates, locations, a roadmap of obsession, and on the final page, a single line that sent a chill down her spine. Emma makes 3. Morning light filtered through the blinds of Marcus's apartment, casting striped shadows across the living room floor. Emma slept on the couch, where she had eventually dozed off during the movie. Marcus hadn't had the heart to move her. Instead, he'd covered her with a blanket and spent the night in a nearby armchair watching over her, his mind racing with questions he couldn't answer. Solomon had left late the previous evening, promising to return in the morning. True to his word, a gentle knock at the door announced his arrival just after 7. He carried a bakery box and a cardboard tray of coffee cups. I thought you might need this, he said, setting the items on the kitchen counter. And I brought hot chocolate for Emma. Marcus nodded gratefully. Thanks, I barely slept. Any more calls from Detective Rivera? No. Marcus glanced toward Emma's sleeping form. What am I going to tell her? How do I explain that her mother might be? He couldn't finish the sentence. Solomon followed his gaze. Children are more resilient than we give them credit for. Be honest, but age-appropriate. She doesn't need all the details. Before Marcus could respond, his phone vibrated. A text from Rivera. Press conference moved up to 10 a.m. Would like you there if possible. Can arrange childcare. Marcus showed the message to Solomon. I should go, shouldn't I? You should, Solomon agreed. I can stay with Emma if you'd like. The offer surprised Marcus. You barely know us. I know enough, Solomon replied simply. Marcus considered the elderly jeweler with his kind eyes and steady presence. Despite having met just yesterday under the most bizarre circumstances, Marcus felt he could trust this man who had his own stake in uncovering the truth about Vanessa. "Thank you," he said finally. "That would be a big help." On the couch, Emma stirred, sitting up with the disoriented look of a child waking in an unexpected place. "Dad?" "Right here, Emma Bear." Marcus crossed to her, smoothing her tousled hair. "Mr. Webb brought breakfast and hot chocolate." Emma's eyes lit up at the mention of hot chocolate, though the brightness dimmed slightly when she noticed Marcus's rumpled clothes. "You didn't go to bed. I was watching over you," he said, forcing a smile. Like a superhero. This seemed to satisfy her. She slid off the couch and padded to the kitchen, offering Solomon a shy good morning before investigating the bakery box. As Emma devoured a chocolate croissant, Marcus explained that he needed to go to a meeting, and Solomon would stay with her. "Is it about Mom?" she asked. Chocolate smeared at the corner of her mouth. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. The police are still trying to find her. Because of the ring? Partly, yes." Emma considered this, then asked the question Marcus had been dreading. Did Mom hurt someone? The directness of the question startled him. He knelt to her level, choosing his words carefully. "We don't know for sure. That's what the police are trying to figure out. Is that why she left us? Because she did something bad and didn't want to get caught?" The painful logic of an 8-year-old cut straight to the heart of the matter. "Maybe," Marcus admitted. "But Emma, I want you to remember something very important. Whatever your mom might have done, it has nothing to do with you. She loved you in her own way." Emma wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "I don't think she did. Not really." The matter-of-fact statement broke Marcus's heart. "It's okay though, we're okay without her, right, Dad?" Marcus pulled her into a tight hug, blinking back tears. "We're more than okay, Emma Bear, we're great." After showering and changing into fresh clothes, Marcus prepared to leave for the press conference. He gave Emma detailed instructions about her medications and emergency contacts, though he knew Solomon was listening attentively. At the door, Solomon reassured him. "We'll be fine. I thought we might work on some jewelry making. I brought supplies." He patted a small bag Marcus hadn't noticed. "Emma mentioned she likes dinosaurs. I thought we could make a dinosaur charm bracelet." Emma's excited squeal confirmed the brilliance of this plan. Marcus left feeling slightly less anxious, though the knot in his stomach tightened as he approached the police station. The media presence was already substantial. News vans lined the street, reporters checking equipment and producers coordinating live shots. Marcus slipped in through a side entrance as instructed by Rivera's text. Inside, the station buzzed with activity. Rivera met him in the lobby, her expression grave. "Thank you for coming. There have been developments." She led him to a small room adjacent to the press briefing area. James Delaney was already there, looking haggard but determined. A wall-mounted television showed the empty podium where the press conference would soon take place. "What's happening?" Marcus asked, taking a seat. Rivera placed a folder on the table. "The FBI has been processing the evidence from the storage unit all night. They've identified connections to at least 7 missing persons cases spanning 15 years in 5 states. The number hit Marcus like a physical blow. 7? Possibly more, Rivera said. All women between the ages of 20 and 35, all with similar physical characteristics to Amber Levine. James made a strangled sound. "And the journal? The fantasies?" Rivera's expression darkened. "Detailed accounts of stalking, abduction scenarios, and..." She hesitated, glancing at Marcus. "Disposal methods." "Disposal?" Marcus repeated hollowly. "You mean, we don't know if she acted on these fantasies," Rivera interjected quickly. "But given the evidence in the storage unit, personal effects from missing women, surveillance photos, we have to assume the worst." "What about the last entry?" Marcus asked. "Emma makes 3. What does that mean?" Rivera and James exchanged uncomfortable looks. "We believe," Rivera said carefully, "based on patterns in the journal, that Vanessa targets women who represent something to her. Competition, perhaps, or a certain type she's fixated on. And Emma, my 8-year-old daughter? The pattern suggests she grows attached, then destroys the attachment. It's possible she saw Emma as a future threat or rival. The implication made Marcus physically ill. That's why she left? Because she was afraid she might hurt Emma? It's one theory, Rivera acknowledged. Another is that she was planning to take Emma with her and something changed her mind. Or someone interrupted her plans, James suggested quietly. A knock at the door announced the arrival of Captain Hernandez. 2 minutes to the press conference. "Detective, are you ready?" Rivera nodded, then turned back to Marcus and James. I'll be announcing the connection between these cases and asking for public assistance in locating Vanessa Nichols, also known as Vanessa Trevor. We won't release details about Emma or your family, Mr. Trevor, but the press will inevitably discover the connection. I understand, Marcus said, though the thought of reporters stalking his apartment building, questioning Emma's friends or teachers, filled him with dread. After the conference, I'd like to go over some additional evidence with both of you. Photos of other women from the storage unit. You might recognize someone or some location that could help us. As Rivera left to take her position at the podium, Marcus turned to James. How are you holding up? The older man gave a humorless laugh. I've spent 18 years wondering what happened to Amber. Now I might finally get answers, but they're worse than anything I could have imagined. On the television, the press conference began. Captain Hernandez introduced Detective Rivera, who stepped to the microphone with professional composure. Good morning, I'm Detective Isabel Rivera with the LAPD Cold Case Unit. We are here today to announce a significant breakthrough in the 2005 disappearance of Amber Levine. Photographs appeared on a screen behind her. Amber Levine's smiling face, then the engagement ring with its distinctive inscription. Yesterday, this ring was recovered when a local resident attempted to sell it, believing it had belonged to his ex-wife. Subsequent investigation has revealed connections between this case and at least 7 other missing persons cases across 5 states. Murmurs rippled through the assembled press. We are currently seeking this woman, Rivera continued as a photo of Vanessa appeared on screen, who has used the aliases Valerie Nichols and Vanessa Trevor, among others. She was last seen boarding a flight to Vancouver, British Columbia, but may have continued to another destination. She is approximately 40 years old, 5'7" with dark brown hair, though she may have altered her appearance. As Rivera continued detailing the investigation, Marcus stared at the photograph of Vanessa, a DMV photo from her driver's license. It showed a woman he thought he knew, whose head had once rested on the pillow next to his, whose body had carried their child. Now she was a stranger, a monster. The LAPD is working closely with the FBI and Canadian authorities to locate this individual, Rivera was saying. If you have any information regarding her whereabouts, please contact the tip line displayed on your screen. Do not approach her, as she should be considered dangerous. I'll now take a few questions. A flurry of hands shot up. Rivera pointed to a reporter in the front row. Detective, can you confirm reports that personal effects from multiple missing women were found in a storage unit connected to the suspect? Yes, we recovered items that appear to belong to several missing persons. We are in the process of making positive identifications and notifying families. Another reporter, is there any evidence that these women are deceased? Rivera's expression remained neutral. At this time, we have not recovered any human remains. However, given the length of time some of these individuals have been missing, we are pursuing all possibilities. What about the man who brought in the ring? Was he involved? The individual who recovered the ring is cooperating fully with our investigation. We have no evidence suggesting his involvement. Marcus felt a surge of gratitude for Rivera's discretion. One final question, she said, pointing to a reporter in the back. Detective, sources suggest the suspect was married and has a child. Is that child safe? Marcus's breath caught in his throat. I can confirm that all individuals connected to this case are accounted for and safe, Rivera said firmly. That's all the questions we'll take today. Thank you. As the press conference concluded, Marcus turned to James. They'll find her, right? James's expression was grim. They'll try, but she's had years of practice at disappearing, at becoming someone else. The door opened and Rivera returned. You both did well, she said. Now, if you're ready, I'd like to show you some of the photographs recovered from the storage unit. See if you recognize anyone or anything that might help us. She led them to a conference room where dozens of photographs were spread across a large table. Most showed women going about their daily lives, shopping, entering buildings, walking dogs, clearly taken without their knowledge. Each photo had dates and locations written on the back in neat handwriting that Marcus recognized as Vanessa's. These are the women we've been able to identify as missing, Rivera said, indicating a section of photos. We believe they represent Vanessa's victims. Marcus scanned the faces. Young women, mostly blonde like Amber, with similar features. One photo made him pause. Wait, I know her. Rivera and James looked up sharply. This woman, Marcus said, pointing to a photo of a blonde woman entering a coffee shop. She was a friend of Vanessa's, or at least I met her once. Vanessa introduced her as a college friend who was visiting.
I think her name was Rachel. Rivera checked the back of the photo. Rachel Winters, Santa Monica, May 2014.
She quickly pulled up a database on her tablet and searched the name. Rachel Winters reported missing June 2014 from Santa Monica. Never found. The implication hung heavy in the room. She was in our home, Marcus said, his voice hollow. Had dinner with us, played with Emma, who was just a baby then, and then what? Vanessa just what? Killed her? We don't know that for certain, Rivera cautioned, though her expression suggested otherwise. James had moved to another section of photos, surveillance shots of Amber Levine. He touched them gently, as if he could reach through the paper and into the past. She watched Amber for weeks before she disappeared, learned her routines, her habits. Standard predatory behavior, Rivera confirmed. These aren't crimes of opportunity. They're meticulously planned. As Marcus continued examining the photos, another familiar face caught his eye. This woman too, he said, pointing to a photo of a red-headed woman leaving a gym. Catherine something. She and Vanessa were supposed to be working on a pharmaceutical conference together. She came to the house a few times. Rivera checked the back of the photo. Catherine Doyle, Pasadena, October 2016. Another search, another missing persons report. Catherine Doyle disappeared November 2016. Jesus, Marcus muttered, feeling sick. How many of her friends were actually her victims? Rivera's phone buzzed. She answered, listened intently, then ended the call with a terse, "On my way." "What is it?" James asked. "They found something in a hidden compartment in the storage unit," Rivera said, already heading for the door. "I need to go see it. Wait here. I'll be back as soon as I can." Left alone, Marcus and James sat in uncomfortable silence, surrounded by the faces of women who had crossed paths with Vanessa and disappeared. "Did you ever suspect?" James asked finally. "That something was off about her?" Marcus considered the question honestly. She was distant sometimes, secretive, but I chalked it up to her personality. Some people are just private, you know? He shook his head. "I never imagined anything like this." "Me neither," James admitted. After Amber disappeared, Vanessa, was so supportive. She helped organize search parties, put up flyers, even cried with me once when we got a false lead. He looked up, his eyes haunted. "Do you think she enjoyed that? Playing the concerned friend while knowing exactly what had happened to Amber?" The thought was too horrible to contemplate, yet impossible to ignore. "Did she ever hurt Emma?" James asked cautiously. "No," Marcus said firmly. "She was distant as a mother, especially as Emma got older, but never abusive." He paused, remembering the journal entry. "Emma makes 3. What? Something Rivera mentioned. The last entry in Vanessa's journal. Emma makes 3. What if? Marcus hesitated, the thought almost too terrible to voice. What if she saw Emma as a future rival? What if she was planning to do something to her but couldn't go through with it? Children often resemble their parents, James said slowly. If Emma started looking more like you as she grew, and less like Vanessa, Marcus finished, maybe that's why she left. Not because she was bored with domestic life, but because she was afraid of what she might do to Emma. The door opened, and Rivera returned, her expression grave. In her gloved hands, she carried a small wooden box. "We found this hidden in a false bottom of a larger container," she said, placing the box on the table. "It contains personal effects that we believe belonged to Amber Levine." James leaned forward, his body tense. Rivera opened the box carefully. Inside lay a delicate silver necklace with a small butterfly pendant, a class ring from Berkeley, a worn leather bracelet, and a small silver compact. "These were Amber's," James confirmed, his voice breaking. "I gave her the necklace for her birthday, the bracelet she'd had since high school." "There was also this," Rivera said, removing a folded piece of paper from her pocket. She carefully unfolded it, revealing a handwritten note. "I took what was mine," James read aloud, his face draining of color. "JD should have chosen me." Her face was the last thing she saw. Silence fell over the room as the implications of the note sank in. "She killed Amber because she was jealous?" Marcus asked incredulously. "Because James chose Amber instead of her?" "It appears that way," Rivera said. "Based on this note and the patterns we're seeing in the other cases, we believe Vanessa or Valerie targets women she sees as rivals or as having something she wants. But the other women," Marcus protested, "Rachel, Catherine, they weren't rivals. They were supposedly her friends. Friends who may have had qualities she coveted," Rivera suggested. "Beauty, success, freedom. We're still developing the psychological profile, but the evidence points to a pathological envy as a primary motive. James had gone very still, his eyes fixed on Amber's belongings. "All these years," he murmured. "All these years I've been hoping she was alive somewhere, that she'd run away, started a new life." He looked up, tears streaming down his face. "But she's gone. She's been gone all this time." Marcus reached out, placing a hesitant hand on the older man's shoulder. "What about the other women?" James asked, wiping his eyes. "The ones in these photos?" Rivera's expression was somber. "Based on the evidence in the storage unit and the patterns we're seeing, we have to assume the worst. We're expanding our search efforts, looking for remains." The clinical term couldn't disguise the horrific reality. They were looking for bodies. Marcus thought of Emma, safely making jewelry with Solomon, blissfully unaware that her mother was likely a serial killer. How would he ever explain this to her? How could he protect her from this truth and from the media frenzy that would inevitably follow? "Detective," he said, "I need to get back to my daughter. It's too much." Rivera nodded understandingly. "Of course, Officer Chen can drive you home, but Mr. Trevor, I should warn you. The press may have already connected you to this case. There might be reporters at your apartment." The thought filled Marcus with dread. "What should I do?" "You could stay at a hotel for a few days," she suggested. "Or with friends or family." Marcus thought of his limited finances, already stretched thin by Emma's medical needs. As if reading his mind, James spoke up. "I have a house in Malibu," he said. "Secluded, gated community. You and Emma would be welcome to stay there until things calm down." The offer surprised Marcus. "Why would you do that?" James considered his answer. "Because we're connected now, whether we like it or not. Because your daughter deserves protection from all this." He gestured to the photos, the evidence of Vanessa's crimes. "And because I think we both need answers that only Vanessa can provide." Before Marcus could respond, Rivera's phone buzzed again. She answered, listened, then looked up with renewed intensity. "Canadian Border Patrol has detained a woman attempting to enter the country using a false passport," she announced. "The description matches Vanessa. They're sending photos for confirmation now." A tense silence fell as they waited for the images to arrive. When Rivera's tablet pinged with an incoming message, all three leaned forward eagerly. The photo showed a woman with short blonde hair and glasses, her expression neutral as she looked into the camera. Despite the changes, Marcus recognized her immediately. "That's her," he confirmed. "That's Vanessa." James nodded in agreement. "That's Valerie." Rivera was already making calls, coordinating with Canadian authorities for extradition. "She's being held on passport fraud charges while we process the paperwork to bring her back to the U.S., she explained after hanging up. "It could take a few days." "She'll talk her way out of it," James predicted grimly. "She always had an answer for everything." "Not this time," Rivera assured him. "The evidence against her is substantial, and now that we have her in custody, we can match her DNA against samples from the storage unit." Marcus stood, suddenly feeling the weight of the past 24 hours crashing down on him. "I need to get back to Emma, to figure out what I'm going to tell her. The offer of my house still stands," James said. After a moment's consideration, Marcus nodded. "Thank you. Just until things settle down." As Officer Chen drove Marcus home, the city passed by in a blur. His mind raced with unanswered questions. How had Vanessa hidden her true nature for so long? Had she ever truly cared for him or Emma? What would have happened if he hadn't decided to sell that ring? At his apartment building, Chen pulled to the curb and grimaced. "Looks like the press is already here." Sure enough, a small cluster of reporters and camera operators had gathered near the entrance. Someone spotted their arrival, and the group surged toward the police car. "Around back," Marcus directed. "There's a service entrance." They managed to slip into the building unnoticed, taking the service elevator to Marcus's floor. Inside the apartment, they found Emma and Solomon at the kitchen table, surrounded by beads, wire, and jewelry-making tools. Emma wore a pair of magnifying glasses that made her eyes appear comically large. "Dad!" she exclaimed, pushing up the glasses. "Look what we made!" She held up a charm bracelet featuring crude but recognizable dinosaur shapes. "That's amazing, Emma Bear," Marcus said, forcing enthusiasm into his voice. Solomon studied Marcus's face, then turned to Emma. "Why don't you finish stringing those last beads while I talk to your dad?" In the hallway, Marcus briefed Solomon on the developments. The evidence pointing to Vanessa as a serial killer, her apprehension at the Canadian border, and James's offer of his Malibu home as a temporary refuge. "A wise precaution," Solomon agreed. glancing toward the window where reporters could be seen gathering below. "What will you tell Emma?" Marcus sighed heavily. "As little as possible for now. That the police found her mom, that we need to stay somewhere else for a while until the excitement dies down. And the media? No comment. To anything." Solomon nodded approvingly. "I can help you pack if you like." Marcus accepted gratefully, and together they gathered essentials for a few days away. Clothes, Emma's medications, her favorite books and toys. Solomon called his nephew to watch the jewelry store so he could drive them to Malibu, avoiding the reporters out front. As they prepared to leave through the service entrance, Marcus knelt before Emma. "We're going to stay at a friend's house for a few days, like a little vacation, okay?" Emma studied his face, her perceptiveness sometimes startling. "Because of Mom? Because of what she did?" Marcus nodded. "Partly, yes. There are some people outside, reporters, who want to ask us questions, but we don't have to talk to them." "Did they find her? Mom?" "Yes," Marcus said simply. "The police found her." Emma absorbed this information, then asked the question Marcus had been dreading. "Did she hurt people? Is that why the police wanted to find her?" Marcus exchanged a glance with Solomon, who gave an almost imperceptible nod of encouragement. "The police think she might have," Marcus said carefully. "But they need to ask her a lot of questions to be sure." Emma considered this. "If she hurt people, she'll go to jail, right? That's where bad people go." The childish simplicity of her moral framework was both heartbreaking and comforting. "Yes, if she hurt people, she'll go to jail." "Good," Emma said with surprising firmness. "She should be punished if she did bad things." She looked up at her father. "You always tell me there are consequences for our actions." Marcus pulled her into a tight hug, marveling at her resilience and innate sense of justice. "That's right, Emma Bear. There are consequences for everyone." As they slipped out the back entrance and into Solomon's car, Marcus caught a glimpse of the media circus forming in front of his building. Soon they would discover his connection to Vanessa, would plaster Emma's face across newspapers and television screens, would dissect their life together in search of clues they might have missed. But for now, as they drove toward the safety of James's Malibu home, Marcus allowed himself a moment of hope. Vanessa had been caught. The mystery of Amber Levine might finally be solved. And though the road ahead would be difficult, he and Emma would face it together. Survivors of a different kind of tragedy, but survivors nonetheless. The Malibu house stood perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, its glass walls reflecting the late afternoon sunlight. To Marcus, it felt like entering another world, one far removed from his modest apartment and the nightmarish revelations of the past 48 hours. James Delaney had arrived before them, opening the electronic gate with a remote and greeting them in the circular driveway. His face showed the strain of recent events, but he managed a genuine smile for Emma. "Welcome," he said simply, leading them inside. "Make yourselves comfortable. There are 3 guest bedrooms upstairs. Choose whichever you like." Emma gazed wide-eyed at the spacious interior with its soaring ceilings and panoramic ocean views. "Wow," she whispered. "It's like a castle." James's smile softened. "Not quite a castle, but it's peaceful here. The beach below is private. You can go down whenever you want." While Solomon helped bring in their bags, Marcus took Emma to select a bedroom. She chose one with a balcony overlooking the water, immediately claiming the window seat as her reading nook. "Dad," she said, her small face suddenly serious. "Are we hiding from the bad people?" Marcus sat beside her, choosing his words carefully. "Not hiding exactly. Just giving ourselves some space from people who have a lot of questions we don't want to answer right now." She nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Like when Jacob Peters kept asking about my heart surgery, and you told him it was private?" "Just like that," Marcus agreed, marveling at her ability to process complex situations through her 8-year-old framework. Downstairs, Solomon prepared to leave, having fulfilled his role as their chauffeur. Marcus walked him to the door. "Thank you," he said earnestly, "for everything." Solomon clasped his shoulder firmly. "You'll be all right here. James is a good man who's carried his grief with dignity for 18 years. I think having you and Emma here might help him as much as it helps you." After Solomon's departure, a strange domestic scene unfolded. James, apparently an accomplished cook, prepared dinner while Marcus helped Emma unpack. The 3 of them ate on the terrace as the sun set over the ocean, casting long golden reflections across the water. Emma, resilient as always, peppered James with questions about his house, his work, investment banking, now semi-retired, and whether he'd seen any dolphins from his terrace. "Several times," James assured her. If you watch in the mornings, you might see them. After dinner, while Emma showered, the two men sat in silence watching the darkening sky. James finally broke the quiet. Detective Rivera called. The extradition process has begun. Vanessa, or whatever her real name is, should be back in the U.S. within a week. Marcus nodded, unsure what to say. What do you say to a man whose fiancée was presumably murdered by your ex-wife? I need to know why. James continued, his voice barely audible above the crash of waves below. Why Amber? Was it really just because I chose her instead of Valerie? We weren't even close. I barely knew Valerie before Amber disappeared. Marcus stared into his wineglass. I've been asking myself the same questions. Was any of it real? Did she ever love me? Did she ever love Emma? He paused. And what would have happened if I hadn't tried to sell that ring? The implications hung heavy between them. If Marcus hadn't entered Webb's fine jewelry that day, Vanessa might still be free. Other women might have disappeared. Emma might have been at risk. James seemed to read his thoughts. You did the right thing, even though you didn't know it at the time. Whatever happens next, remember that. The following days established an unusual routine. Detective Rivera called with updates. DNA samples from the storage unit matched several missing women. More personal effects were being identified. Vanessa's extradition was proceeding. Emma, seemingly untroubled by their temporary exile, spent hours on the private beach collecting shells and reading in her window seat. Marcus found himself gravitating toward James's extensive library, losing himself in books to avoid obsessively checking news coverage of the case. On the third night, Marcus's phone rang. Detective Rivera's voice was urgent. Mr. Trevor, I wanted you to hear this from me first. Vanessa has agreed to cooperate on one condition. What condition? Marcus asked, dread pooling in his stomach. She wants to speak with you, only you. The interrogation room was deliberately stark. White walls, metal furniture bolted to the floor, a single camera mounted in the corner. Marcus sat rigidly in an uncomfortable chair, his palms damp with nervous sweat as he waited. Detective Rivera stood in the corner, arms crossed, a silent guardian. You don't have to do this, she reminded him for the third time. We can find another way to make her talk. Marcus shook his head. If she'll only speak to me, then I need to hear what she has to say. For Amber's family, for the other victims, for Emma. The door opened with a metallic clang, and Vanessa entered, escorted by two officers. Marcus barely recognized her. The blonde hair was gone, shaved to a short stubble that revealed her natural dark roots. Without makeup, her face appeared gaunt, angular. Only her eyes remained unchanged, dark and penetrating, studying him with unsettling intensity. The officers guided her to the chair opposite Marcus. Handcuffs secured her to a metal loop on the table. When they stepped back, Vanessa leaned forward slightly. Hello, Marcus, she said, her voice oddly familiar despite everything. You look well. He stared at her, searching for any trace of the woman he had loved, the mother of his child. Why did you want to see me? Straight to business? A ghost of a smile crossed her lips. No small talk? How's Emma? Marcus clenched his jaw. You don't get to ask about her. Vanessa tilted her head, studying him like a scientist might examine a particularly interesting specimen. I have conditions for my cooperation. Things I want in exchange for information about Amber Levine and the others. What things? Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew. I want to see Emma. Absolutely not, Marcus said instantly, half rising from his chair. Rivera stepped forward. That's not happening. Period. What else? Vanessa ignored the detective, her eyes fixed on Marcus. I have rights. She's my daughter too. You gave up any rights when you abandoned her. Marcus shot back. When you left her without a word, without a single call or card for 3 years. And definitely when we found out what you did to those women. What I allegedly did, Vanessa corrected calmly. Nothing's been proven yet. We found Amber's things, Marcus said. Your journal, the note. Her face was the last thing she saw. We know, Vanessa. It's over. For the first time, her composure wavered. That name, she said quietly. Vanessa Trevor. She was never real, you know. Just another mask I wore, one of many. Then who are you? Marcus asked, genuinely wanting to know. What's your real name? She smiled enigmatically. That's not important now. What matters is what I know. Where to find them. The missing pieces of your puzzle. Rivera stepped closer to the table. Are you saying you'll reveal the locations of your victims? Vanessa glanced at the detective, then back to Marcus. I'm saying I have information that would give closure to many families, including James Delaney. The calculated mention of James's name sent a chill down Marcus's spine. She knew they were connected now, that they were staying in James's house. Somehow she still had her sources, her ways of gathering information. "What do you want?" Marcus asked again. "Besides seeing Emma, which will never happen." Vanessa leaned back, considering. "Reasonable accommodations. A medium security facility rather than maximum. Access to books, writing materials. And," she paused, her eyes locking with Marcus's, "a full psychological evaluation by experts of my choosing." "Why?" The question escaped before Marcus could stop it. "Because I want to understand," she said simply. "I want to know why I did what I did. What broke inside me." For the first time since entering the room, Marcus saw something that might have been genuine emotion cross her face. Confusion, perhaps, or regret. But it vanished so quickly he might have imagined it. Rivera cleared her throat. "We can discuss accommodations with the district attorney. The psychological evaluation might be possible depending on who you want to conduct it. But first we need proof that you can deliver what you're promising." Vanessa nodded slowly. "Amber Levine's remains are in a wooded area near Big Bear Lake. I can provide coordinates. That should be proof enough of my sincerity." Marcus felt sick. The casual way she mentioned Amber's remains, as if discussing the location of a misplaced book, was chilling. "Why?" he asked, the question bursting from him. "Why Amber? Why any of them?" Vanessa studied him, head tilted. Different reasons for different women. Amber had something I wanted. James's love, her perfect life, her future. Rachel had a career I envied. Catherine had freedom I craved. She paused. It was never personal. It was about what they represented. "And what about Emma?" Marcus's voice cracked. "What did our 8-year-old daughter represent that made you write Emma makes 3? Something flickered in Vanessa's eyes. A shadow Marcus couldn't interpret. "That's complicated. Try me." She hesitated, then spoke carefully. "As Emma grew, she started looking more like you, less like me. She became a reminder of what I could never truly have, a normal life, a soul that wasn't damaged." "So you were going to hurt her?" Marcus demanded, his voice rising. "No," Vanessa said sharply. "I left because I was afraid I might. I left to protect her." The admission hung in the air between them, the closest thing to humanity Marcus had seen from her. Rivera stepped forward. "We'll take the coordinates for Amber Levine. If they check out, we can discuss your other requests." Vanessa nodded, then fixed her gaze on Marcus one last time. "Tell Emma I'm sorry, not for leaving. That was the best thing I could have done for her, but for not being the mother she deserved." As the officers led her away, Marcus remained seated, overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. Relief that she had never harmed Emma, disgust at her casual admission of multiple murders, and a terrible, unwanted flicker of pity for whatever broken thing lived inside the woman he had once called his wife. 6 months later, Marcus stood at the back of the courtroom as the jury foreman rose to deliver the verdict. The trial of Vanessa Trevor, now legally identified as Valerie Nichols, her original name before the first of many identities, had captivated the nation for weeks. 8 counts of first-degree murder, including the killing of Amber Levine, whose remains had been recovered exactly where Vanessa had indicated. On the first count of murder in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. A collective exhale swept through the courtroom. James Delaney, seated in the front row, dropped his head into his hands. Solomon Webb placed a comforting arm around his shoulders. On the second count of murder in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. And so it continued, a litany of justice 18 years in the making. Marcus watched Vanessa's, Valerie's, reaction. She remained perfectly still, her face a mask of composure as each guilty verdict was read. When court adjourned until sentencing, Marcus slipped out a side exit, avoiding the press gauntlet that had dogged him throughout the trial. Outside, Detective Rivera waited by her car. "Need a ride?" she offered. Marcus nodded gratefully. "Thanks. Emma's waiting at home with Solomon's niece. I told her I'd be back for dinner." During the drive, Rivera filled him in on details not covered in the courtroom. The psychiatric evaluation was completed last week. Multiple diagnoses: antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, possibly psychopathy. The experts disagree on the exact terminology, but they all concur she knew exactly what she was doing. Will it affect sentencing? Rivera shook her head. Not with 8 convictions, she'll get life without parole at minimum, possibly consecutive sentences. They drove in silence for a while before Marcus asked the question that had haunted him for months. "Do you think she ever loved Emma?" Even for a moment? Rivera considered carefully. The psychiatrists believe she's incapable of love as we understand it. But they also believe her claim that she left to protect Emma. She recognized something dangerous in herself and removed herself from the equation. She glanced at Marcus. It's probably the closest thing to maternal instinct she was capable of. At the beach house, now Marcus and Emma's permanent home after James had unexpectedly gifted it to them, 10-year-old Emma was setting the table for dinner. Her heart surgery 4 months earlier had been a complete success. She moved with newfound energy, her cheeks flushed with healthy color. "Dad," she called, rushing to hug him. Did they decide? Is she going to jail forever? Marcus nodded, still amazed by his daughter's resilience. After careful counseling, he had explained as much of the truth as she could handle. Emma had processed it with remarkable clarity, asking thoughtful questions and expressing appropriate emotions without being overwhelmed. "Yes, Emma Bear. She's going to jail for a very long time." Emma nodded solemnly. "Good. That's where she belongs." Later, after dinner and homework, Marcus found Emma in her reading nook, gazing out at the moonlit ocean. "Penny, for your thoughts?" he asked, joining her on the window seat. "I was thinking about James and Mr. Webb," she said, "about how sad they were for so long because they didn't know what happened to Amber. But now they know, and even though it's really sad, they can start to feel better." Marcus marveled at her emotional intelligence. "That's very insightful, Em. And I was thinking about Mom," she continued cautiously, watching his reaction. "I know she did terrible things, but she did one good thing too." "What's that?" Emma looked up at him with eyes wise beyond her years. "She left us before she could hurt me, before she could hurt us. That doesn't make her good, but maybe it means there was a tiny piece of her that wasn't all bad." Marcus pulled her close, throat tight with emotion. "I think you're right, and you know what else? She gave me you. And you're the best thing that ever happened to me." Emma snuggled against him, content in the knowledge that despite everything, she was safe, she was loved, and her future stretched before her like the vast ocean outside their window, full of possibilities, unbound by the darkness of the past. In the distance, a lone lighthouse beam swept across the water, a reminder that even on the darkest nights, guidance and safety could be found, if one knew where to look. 2 days later, Marcus visited the cold case unit to officially close his part of the investigation. Detective Rivera met him in the lobby. "I have something for you," she said, handing him a small envelope. It was recovered from the storage unit but wasn't evidence in the case. Inside was a photograph Marcus had never seen. Emma as a baby, sleeping peacefully in her crib. On the back, in Vanessa's distinctive handwriting, were 5 simple words. "The one I couldn't hurt." Marcus stared at the photo for a long moment, then carefully tucked it into his pocket. Some mysteries would remain unsolved, some questions unanswered, but the most important truth had emerged from the darkness. Emma had been spared. And in that solitary act of maternal instinct, or perhaps just human decency, Vanessa had done the one thing that allowed Marcus to move forward without being consumed by hatred. As he left the police station for the last time, Marcus felt the weight of the past 6 months beginning to lift. Ahead lay summer afternoons on their private beach, Emma's triumphant return to school in the fall, and the slow, steady process of building a life defined not by what they had lost, but by what they had found, in each other, in James and Solomon, and in the strange, unlikely family they had formed from the fragments of tragedy. The California sun shone brightly overhead as Marcus stepped into his future. The engagement ring that had started it all now securely locked away in an evidence room, a small circle of metal that had, against all odds, finally brought truth, justice, and a measure of peace to all whose lives it had touched.